The gamekeeper's day morning for Rubeus Hagrid did not arrive with the gentle twittering of birds, but with a heavy, wet slap across the face. Fang, the boarhound, had decided the sun was up, which meant his master had no business lying under a patchwork quilt that looked more like a circus tent than a blanket. "Get off, ye great lump," Hagrid grumbled, affectionately shoving the dog aside with a hand the size of a dustbin lid. I'm up. The wooden floorboards groaned as he swung his feet out of bed. The hut was soon filled with the sounds of heavy lumbering, causing the crockery in the dresser to rattle violently. Hagrid poked the embers in the fireplace into roaring life, hung a copper kettle, large enough to boil a quaffle, over the flames, and tossed a few sausages onto a pan, each one as thick as a first-year's arm. Outside, Hogwarts was just stirring. Mist still clung to the surface of the Black Lake, obscuring the tentacles of the giant squid as it basked lazily in the shallows. Hagrid stepped out onto his front step, breathed in the chill air, and smiled into his beard. It was going to be a good day. The morning round's first order of business was the hippogriffs. Hagrid grabbed a bucket of dead ferrets, their absolute favorite, and strode toward the paddock near the edge of the forbidden forest. "Easy now, Beaky, easy, my beauty," he rumbled softly as the hippogriff bowed its proud head in greeting. Hagrid bowed back, his nose nearly brushing the turf. "Tha's it, good lad. Ye see, Fang, manners, tha's the important thing, even if you've got talons like daggers." While the hippogriffs tore into their breakfast, Hagrid managed to untangle the mane of a thestral that had snagged itself on a blackthorn bush. To anyone watching from the castle, it would have looked like the gamekeeper was patting thin air and swatted away a colony of bowtruckles attempting to steal his bootlaces for nesting material, tea, and rock cakes. By noon, the sun was high over the castle turrets. Hagrid returned to his hut to prepare for his lesson with the third years. It was flobberworms today. A bit dull, certainly. Nothing like the excitement of blast-ended scroots, but safe. Professor McGonagall had suggested something a little less likely to explode, after all. He sat at his massive scrubbed table, retrieved a plate of rock cakes, which were liable to break a tooth if not thoroughly dunked in tea first, and unfolded a fresh copy of the Daily Prophet. There was a knock at the door. "Enter!" Hagrid bellowed. Harry, Ron, and Hermione shuffled in, looking rather battered after a double session of potions. "Cup of tea?" Hagrid beamed, sweeping a suspicious-looking hairy pelt off a chair to make room. "Just baked some cakes. Got raisins in 'em." Ron, catching Hagrid's eye, smiled bravely while sliding his rock cake into his robe pocket when the giant wasn't looking. "Thanks, Hagrid. How are, your pets?" "Oh, brilliant." Hagrid's beetle-black eyes crinkled with delight. "I was down at the Hog's Head, see, and I traded a fella for an egg. Well, I shouldn't say too much. It's a surprise." They sat for an hour, the hut thick with the smell of sawdust and strong tea, discussing Quidditch tactics and the general unfairness of Snape. For Hagrid, these were the golden moments, seeing the trio growing up, hearing their laughter in his small, cluttered home. That was happiness. The evening watch, when twilight settled over the grounds and the castle windows began to glow with warm amber light, Hagrid took his crossbow from above the door, mostly for show. Everything in the forest knew him, and set out for his patrol. Fang trotted at his heels, whimpering at rustling leaves, and trying to hide behind Hagrid's moleskin coat. "Don't be such a coward, ye softy. 'Tis only the wind," Hagrid soothed him. At the forest edge he encountered Ronan the Centaur. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, gazing up at the sky. "Mars is bright tonight," the Centaur observed slowly. "Aye," said Hagrid, not bothering to puzzle out the astrological meaning. "Pumpkins are coming along nicely, though. Be the size of carriages by Halloween." Heading back, he paused to look up at the castle. Hogwarts loomed above him, massive, ancient, and enduring. It wasn't just a school, it was his home, the only real home he'd ever known. Hagrid returned to the hut, bolted the door, and threw another log on the fire. Fang immediately collapsed onto the rug, letting out a long, shuddering sigh. "Well then, old lad," Hagrid whispered, blowing out the candle. "Good day, that. Quiet." 5 minutes later, the hut was shaking with the gamekeeper's thunderous snores, and even the castle ghosts knew Hagrid was asleep, and the grounds of Hogwarts were safe.